So we're going to jump straight into this for two reasons. Firstly, because I've got to go pick my daughter up in an hour and 10 minutes. And secondly, because quite often we have that chat before the podcast starts and then you waste all the magic where you're just getting to know each other in those first 15 minutes.
100%, mate. 100%. I've had it so many times.
So without further ado, welcome back to another episode of Shapes of Resilience. This is another spontaneous one with a very kind person that has offered himself up as a guest on my podcast, which I appreciate massively. Tonight I'm joined by Brian Murphy. Brian is the founder of People and Purpose, or one half of People and Purpose, should I say, which includes a podcast, which includes public speaking, which includes a school, I'm led to believe, and a platform that is intended to inspire the next generations and really make a difference. And that's, for me, is the exact person I want to connect with. So thank you for your time tonight, mate.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've explained it. I never really think of it like that, but I'm the better looking half of our
Clearly.
podcast between the two of us.
Yeah. So being a podcast host, before we jump into the main part of the episode, just so people can appreciate what we have to go through as podcast hosts that do it for the love of helping others. We put ourselves under this pressure of creating the perfect podcast, and I create a load of stress just before each episode, which then probably means that it takes me about 10, 15 minutes to calm back down again. But because I stress, I believe I'm manifesting and creating the exact environment with the technical side of it that means it's all going to fall apart before it started. And yet again, then we're trying to log in and I can't see you, you can't hear me. But
It's
because we've both got that patience, you just work through it. So
yeah, well, we're here now, mate, and it's working. So we got there.
Yeah, that's the thing with the more you do, because I had my phone there and I thought, well, I've got my little gimbal there, so I knew with a little jigging around with buttons, devices, we managed to make it work. So, but yeah, resilience building as we speak. Yeah. So how's things, mate? How's everything going before we jump into it?
Yeah, really well, mate. We've had a good start to 2026. Obviously, podcast quite recent. There's obviously, I'll go into a bit of detail in terms of why we started the podcast and what we've done. My sort of biggest thing is I want to show off brilliant people, which is again a reason that you do yours, right? So we had a podcast a couple of years ago, and it was called The Purpose Playbook, and it was good people doing good things in the world that's a little bit rubbish at the minute. I wanted to show off some good people, and then work took over. Very, very busy, different businesses and so on, and we stopped and we were gutted because it was kind of the highlight of our week, meeting brilliant people. So we started a new one, and we've started a sort of a project called the Thank You Project, which again I'll talk a little bit more about in a little while. But the idea of it is that people and purpose. So in my life I had brilliant people who stayed by my side, and you know, I think it's really important. I run a business where we help young people, and my business partner Rich, his is kind of, he found his purpose later on in life and kind of his enjoyment of coming out of a corporate world into our world, and he loves it. So we believe that if everybody has good people in their life, and you can find a purpose, the good people will come and sort of stay, and you can sort of achieve anything.
Good stuff, mate. It's what I love, these conversations, because making some big changes myself recently as well, and really knowing that you can't dabble and you can't make a difference unless you really commit to what you're doing.
Yeah,
but I believe it's the people you remember. It's none of that other stuff.
Yeah, I've got a big motto in everything I do is people don't learn from people they don't like. And I think when you were in school, you remember the teachers who gave you the time of day. You remember the teachers who you could be yourself around. They didn't want to change you, they changed for you. And I believe you remember those people, you remember those teachers who gave you everything, and you remember the people in your life who you liked, and you'll learn so much quicker from people you like than the people you don't. So yeah, I mean, it's a big saying of mine is people don't learn from people they don't like, and it's something that we have throughout our business. And I think as you well know, as you get a bit older, you learn who your good relationships are, who your not so good relationships are, and you sort of live by that.
Does it make you feel to know that you're potentially someone that younger generations do look to as a role model?
How what? Sorry.
How does it make you feel that knowing that the work you do in turn then means that the younger generations you're coming into contact with, whether it's in a
Yeah.
school or day-to-day life, you know that they're looking at you as a role model and listening to what you're saying?
Yeah, look, I think it's super important. I mean, I have to give massive credit to my team of staff. They are incredible. They've really encapsulated everything that I wanted the business to be, and you know what we're doing. But it does. I feel like I grew up in care. The day I was born, I was put into foster care, and I was adopted by two incredible people, but I'd kind of had a lot of trauma previous to being like while I was inside my mum, and you know I had a lot of trauma that you don't feel will impact you growing up. And like for me, the thing I needed more than anything was attachment. I needed people to care. I needed people to stay. So, for example, I do a lot of training with teachers at the moment where it my thing was because I needed attachment. As soon as somebody threw me out of a classroom, which they did many times, and probably rightfully so, my trust in them was gone. So I needed that attachment. So what I try to do in my businesses today is give them young people someone to look up to, someone to aspire to be like. And I've got an incredible team of staff that do that every day. And we make it. You know, we're working with over 400 young people. Uh, we've got 29 young people that live with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we feel like we make a difference in their lives every day. And I think that gives, when I was looking at it last year, I was thinking what makes me happy, and what makes me happy more than anything, probably at the detriment of myself at times, is making and helping other people. And you know, I'm really really lucky to be living that and being able to do that every day.
Played you, mate. And I'm assuming as well, you have days where you're still human as well. And I know that we can sometimes wake up on the wrong day of bed, and then the empire you've created means you still got to show up. How hard is that on days where you've created this beast and all those people there that are dependent on you, but you might have an off day yourself? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, people don't see that bit, right? So you kind of got to show yourself best self every day. And I think my wife, you know, I talk about people who inspire me. My wife has allowed me to start what I've started and done, and she's been there every step of the way. So she kind of sees my bad side. I try not to let everyone. I'm not a great talker. I'm not a great. I don't speak emotionally very well. I'm getting better, but yeah, she sort of sees the bad side of me at home, and she you know she deals with it brilliantly. I wouldn't be who I was or be able to do what I could do without her and sort of the support network around me.
Massive. Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Yeah, it's the blessing you've got to have that understanding with your loved ones where they take all of it. They see all sides of you and still hang
Yeah,
around. It's sometimes you wonder why, don't you? You think,
100%, mate. 100%.
yeah,
I mean, yeah. Look, I mean, I saw something the other day that says that you know the best investment you'll ever make is the people you have in your life. So I'm really blessed to have brilliant people who support what I want to do, and you know, some certainly last year, business was tough, life was hard, and you know, you're always the last one to be fed, right? But she, you know, she stuck by me, and you know, she's an incredible person who I can't speak highly enough of.
I think what you were saying there around business being hard and life being hard at times, my view is when you get to the other side and things start working out again, the gratitude you have for those periods means you're so much more grateful, appreciative of yourself for having stayed strong and found ways to navigate through the adversity, through the darkness, come out the other side. You've not self-sabotaged in those moments when you could have. And then when it gets to the good bit where we both potentially are now, where we're making a difference and we're quite happy in our own skin and doing the things we want to do in our time, it's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah, 100%. It's you know, I'm a classic self sabotager. You know, diagnosed later on in life with ADHD. So my natural instinct is to be defensive in every situation. Yeah, when you get through it, I think you feel like you can get through anything. And I think when you, what I found a lot of, and you know, this isn't a generalization, but I find kids that grow up in care or have been through the system, what I love is the way you talk about resilience. And I find the kids in care are so special. They're so resilient because what I talk a lot about the young people we work with and the stories that come in, and what I say to everybody is we would struggle with that as adults. So how do you think they're doing? And what we help them do is try and navigate those situations. And I think we spend a lot of our life trying to be perfect, right? But young people don't want to see perfect. They want to see lived experience. And I think the most important thing is when someone has been through what you've been through, you think you're alone, right? So when you're going through something, you feel like you're alone. But when you know somebody else has got through it and navigated it and come out the other side, like you're saying, and people can see that, it inspires other people to
Yeah.
be able to do that.
It's the only reason I do my podcast, is to bring people on that have that. Here I am, the other side of where you are. So hold
Yeah.
tight, dig deep, because this is the other side. That's it. That's all I look for. Like the nature of the conversations I could have gone down, and sometimes I get offered a guest, and I feel like they're probably still in the middle of that period of adversity, which is fine. And there's a time and a place for those stories. But I feel like resilience, and that topic of resilience, for me, there's no better way of inspiring people in the darkness to see the people the other side. So
100%.
that's where I
Yeah.
am with it, and it's
So
important.
right. It's so right. And I think I think what I found from what I've been doing over the last kind of year, 18 months, is there are some brilliant people in this country. There are some brilliant people in this world who want to make a difference, who have been through stuff that you've been through yourself and I've been through, and lots of people have been through. And I think if you can inspire one person to be better, and they can look at you and look up to what you've got to and what you're achieving, then you've done a good job, right?
100%. That's it. I mean, we could close this off now. We've nailed it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's
Yeah.
beautiful to get. Sometimes with a podcast, I get sucked into someone's backstory.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's, for me, it's people that do a lot of podcasts go into autopilot a bit, and sometimes they're so used to telling their story in a certain order. And for me, I want to wait till, well, can we now have a discussion about what it is you actually feel and where we can help others? And this exact conversation here is exactly the kind of conversation that I personally enjoy and feel like the listeners get the most value of, because we're both sharing what we know and believe as of today.
Yeah. I could tell loads more about my backstory, but ultimately it's how we've got through the bits that we've got through,
Yeah.
how we've got to here, and how we can shape the future for other people if they listen to this, right?
Yeah. Well, my view is that we've all got this story we tell ourselves, and the more we replay that story and narrative, especially when it relates to trauma and diagnosis of mental health conditions, the more we tell ourselves the story, and this is me speaking from my personal experience, the more we then behave in line with that person. So if say ADHD, for example, how often do you go to react to something and almost second guess, well, how would someone with ADHD react to that because I've got ADHD, as opposed to that gut instinct or that natural behavior? I feel like the more we talk to ourselves in a certain way, we then act accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. When I got my diagnosis, it wasn't necessarily to find out I had it. What it was I wanted to understand my brain.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a little example, but like, I would go downstairs to do something and I completely forget why I'd got there. Or I'd be out and I'd be defensive on something and I'm like, I didn't understand it. So like, I'm unmedicated. And I've chose to be
Yes.
unmedicated, but the reason being is because I wanted to understand my brain, and as soon as I understood my brain and why I do the work, why I couldn't focus for long periods of time, or why I was sitting in long meetings and I was just zoning out, you know, I needed to understand myself. And as soon as I understood myself, I was looking at kind of how other people, it enabled me to be able to help other people who potentially were ADHD and were reacting like me. It gave me a bit of understanding because I educated myself in it. And I think that's really important. What I've learned over the years is like, there's a lot of things that I've educated myself in because I needed to understand certain situations, and when you understand them, you can help somebody else going through that.
That's amazing, mate. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for that. And if I look at my own experiences over the last 20 years, having served in the emergency services and recently retired or resigned, there was a period where I believed wholeheartedly I had PTSD, and the diagnosis, unofficial diagnosis, was you have complex PTSD. And I was at this crossroads, and I decided to, rather than go down that long-winded route of medical retirement and diagnosis of PTSD, I've gone, no, now that I know that, I'm just going to educate myself, and I believe I am the other side. I've taken control of my life. Created a life where I now do all the things that I enjoy doing, and out by the sea, holding events, doing breathwork, saunas, podcasts, coaching. It's none of that stuff involves anything I need to worry whether I do or I don't have PTSD. So
Yeah, and I think that's really important, right? Because what I think sometimes we do is I'm different. I feel different. I've got PTSD, I've got ADHD, I've got OCD, all these things that we
yeah,
have, right, as human beings. But I think what's really important is I'm always going to have ADHD. Other people are always going to have whatever they have, and it's never going to go away. So what we need to do is establish how we're going to cope with everyday life with it. And I say it like it's a bad thing. I also, Rich always sort of says it's a superpower. Like, it's why I'm so
absolutely.
creative. It's why I want to start so many things. It's why I find gaps in areas and find solutions for it. But it's about navigating how, whatever you have or whatever you're dealing with, how you navigate that in everyday life, because it doesn't just go away.
I know, and that word purpose, that is clearly a big part of everything you do. I feel like I found my purpose doing this. So therefore, I'm 60. This is podcast 67. And the reason why I've sustained it so much is because I love it. And like you said, I've got that creative edge as well.
Mm,
So how important do you feel it is when you have those superpowers? Because I don't treat them as
yeah.
illnesses. They're superpowers that we're given, that when we channel them in that right way and we find something that we can turn it into a positive, how important do you feel it is to channel it and find something that
Yeah.
flips it right on his head?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important, and the thing is, like, firstly, like, well done on the on 67. You'll have learned so much from them 67 people. They'll have learned so much from you. But what's really inspiring is it's not just 67 podcasts; it's the thousands and thousands of listeners that one of your podcasts has helped. And
Crazy, mate. It is crazy. The ripple effect is
100%, and you don't see that. So you might get messages and stuff like that, but the people that are watching, if they can take one thing, so you're talking, not only are you having conversations with great people, which is giving you the enjoyment, but it's also you found your purpose. That's what you want to do, but you're also helping thousands and thousands of people who will have been through what me and you have gone through, or any of the other 66 guests. And it makes a huge difference in lots of people's lives. And that's sometimes what we don't think when we're doing the podcast is, like, you don't see it, you don't see that side of it, but it is making a difference.
especially it's men's mental health is such a huge topic, and I feel like what we're doing is so useful because regardless of what you might think, and you feel like sometimes you are encouraging other men to stand up and speak out when they need that support. But from what I'm seeing is people love the fact I'm doing that, but it's still the biggest hurdle. And until you've approached it yourself, it's no matter how much you see other people taking those steps, there's
Yeah.
still, to me, such a huge barrier in the way for men. And what's
Yeah.
your view on that?
Yeah, I think, look, I'm like I said earlier, I'm not great for talking. You ask any of my friends, I'm not a great talker. I kind of grew up with, a very my family would allow me to talk. I just wasn't great at it, and I didn't. I always thought, if it's my problem, it's my problem, right? So, but what I've realised as I've got older is that, again, the people in my life who I have spoken to and opened up to, I've always helped. And I think with men's mental health, which is so rife at the moment, you've got good people like, I was looking at something the other day, and Dapper Laughs is doing that, men and their emotions, and I
He
think
messaged me last week. He's offered to come on my podcast.
Yeah, I mean, incredible guy. Like
Yeah,
he's local to me, and we were talking about him last week, funnily enough. But like the adversity he's been through, and he's really turned it into a positive. Found that purpose around men and their emotions. I see he did a charity game the other day. Like a brilliant guy. I know some people who know him. They tell me he's a brilliant, brilliant guy. But like the media swallowed him up for a period of time. And I think with people like him coming out and speaking up about it. I think there's lots of other celebrities who have got the platforms and things like this podcast. Who I think a lot more people are now opening up and talking about it. And for people like myself who have never been very good at talking about their emotions, I'm very good at giving advice. I'm not so good at taking advice. But yeah, I think it's becoming more common, and I think you're able to talk about it more now.
yeah. And just so the listeners can understand, if you're feeling anything like I am, then this doesn't get any easier, does it?
No,
The fact you're coming on for an authentic, vulnerable, unscripted conversation. I don't write a single question down because I don't allow myself that comfort.
yeah,
Like
it's
I do want to grow
a lot
each
of
time.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's look. I guess I sank into a deep depression, and my mum passed away. I sank into a deep depression. Life was tough last year. Business is hard. It's very much like the iceberg. They don't. Nobody sees the kind of underneath. But I sunk into a deep depression last year also, and for me, it was seeing other people that had got through it that really inspired me to get back up. I needed to make things happen that kind of weren't happening, and I've been able to do that. So yeah, it's I think a lot of it is authenticity and letting people know that you can be in a really bad place, but there's others that have got through it. There's others there. The other one is Andy Mann's Club. There's a local one to
absolutely.
me that's
Yeah,
it's doing phenomenal work nationally around everything mental health for men, and it's brilliant.
absolutely. And it does give you that reassurance that there are so many brilliant organisations doing that kind of work.
Yeah,
So I feel like there is this other area where, for me, the purpose of what I'm doing personally is the audience I have and the community that I'm part of and the occupation that I've done. I know that all of those people are who I can impact personally. And I know you do a lot of work in schools, and I've just been invited myself to go into the only community college in my town and go and talk to the school in workshops. They've seen the work I do online, and they want me to come in and give this alternative talk on resilience and mental health, unscripted, unfiltered. So, and I'm thinking, well, that's an opportunity there for me to impact the lives of
yeah,
every young person in my town.
yeah. Amazing.
It's such a
I
great
think
feeling.
look. I think you're roughly about the same age as I am. I think
43.
yeah, I'm a little bit younger. I'm 40 this year, but I think I think back when we were younger, 20 years ago, I think it was a lot more difficult in terms of finding help. I think it was if you feel like that, you feel like that. Get up and you got to go again tomorrow.
Absolutely.
I feel
Yeah,
like a lot of things have changed, and there is certainly a lot more help and a lot more brilliant people who can help you through situations.
I fully agree. And I wanted to go back actually. So you were talking about depression last year. And I know that one of your projects is the Thank You Project. So I wanted to add those two things together because it's inevitable that during that period there were people or a person in particular. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to thank somebody or a group of people that were pivotal in pulling you through those dark moments.
Yeah, I mean, cool. I mean, look, the Thank You Project was created because I had a mentor, a teacher who took hold of me in year 10, and I was failing everything. And he took me and he stayed and he told me that I was a good kid and I had all these things that I could do. And he got me to pass all my exams because he gave me the time of day. So the reason the project was started is because I never got to thank him, and he passed away before. Like my whole life, I've got a business where we mentor 400 young people, and he is the reason that we do that. And I've got 3 supported accommodation houses and 1 children's home and two more on the way. he is the reason. The children's home side is my parents. My parents were incredible people. They gave me everything. So that's three people. And I guess I had a young person who came up to me. I used to teach in school for 7 years, and I had a young person come up to me who was an adult, and he sort of said to me, "I just want to thank you for everything you did." But unless I'd seen him, I wouldn't have known the impact that I'd had on his life. So I know that doesn't really answer your question. It kind of talks more about the thing, but I guess, look, it goes back to when I was in a hole last year. My wife would be my absolute savior in that situation. She was my rock, my kids, and my dad. They were the people, my close friends around me, Rich, everyone who was around me, gave me the network to do that. So yeah, it's a real positive thing we want to start, because and we have started, and it's got really, really good traction. We've got a lot of people wanting to do it, and it's brilliant because they get to give a thank you to someone. We've got like a thank you wall where people can go and post. We've got videos of really powerful stories of foster carers and cancer nurses and stuff like that. And we've got this virtual wall where they can go on and write. They can do the videos, so that they sort of tell us their thank you and what it meant to them. We've had teachers. It's an incredible. It's something that we really want to take further. We've had so much interest in it, and we've got some really cool ones coming up.
Love that, mate. And I actually think as well, because over the last few years I've attended, sadly, a fair few funerals, and the discussions you have at a funeral about somebody that's no longer here, it became apparent to me. And when I actually remember having a conversation with a group of colleagues at one we attended last year, and we reflected that how sad is that the person that we're talking so highly of isn't present to hear us thank him for his contributions to the community and tell him what we think of him as a person. It's only when they're gone that we reflect on what they mean to us. So what you're doing there is a fantastic way of creating that ripple effect again outwards, where because one person might be inspired by that, they may then take that away and phone a friend and say, "Oh, mate, you've seen what these guys are doing. They're thanking people for the work they've done." And then they say, "Oh, well, why don't we go and do it to our friends at our school?" It's a ripple effect.
Yeah, and that's what that's what's happening. You're absolutely right. Right, we sometimes leave it too long, and I think in the moment you don't thank people enough for the difference they've made. And there's always, like, when I look back at the people that I remember and that got me through the hard times, the good times, everything. No, I didn't thank them enough, and it's as I've got older, I've realised the impact certain people had on me, and it's if we can give someone, I've had tears of people who have received them on the wall, and we send an email straight away. So if somebody puts it in, it goes straight to the person. And other ones we've had to find the people. So teachers that didn't even know, we've had to go and find them, which has been really cool. And then some of them, so I'm meeting a guy next week. Some of them, he's got such a beautiful thank you that we're going to do a follow up. We're going to donate from the podcast £500 for the charity, and that helped him. So yeah, I think it's going to get really good traction, and we love it. We just want to bring a bit of positivity into the world and thank people who are incredible, the unsung heroes that sometimes you forget.
It's amazing work, and it's so clear what the project is. It's not there's you're going to struggle really to, one, not understand what the project is, but then two, unless you're really not in that place yourself, which for me, that's an indication of, well, why am I against something so positive? And quite often it's people that are in that dark hole, or holding on to all those unhelpful emotions of anger, bitter, frustration, that when you're in that, it is hard to find yourself feeling grateful and thankful. But again, that for me that's an indication to those people that, well, why is that?
Yeah. And what we've had a little bit of as well is people that aren't necessarily in the best place. They think back to the people and when they were in a good place, and they bring themselves back to that point and kind of try and dig themselves out of the hole that they're in. And it's been lovely. We weren't expecting it to get the traction it's got so far. We're only 6 weeks into People and Purpose. We're only 6 weeks into the Thank You Project, and it's done brilliantly well. Like it's flying. And I think when people are like yourself, when people are trying to do good things, people buy into that. It's like I always say, like, people come along for the ride, right? So when you find your purpose, the people will follow that. And you've seen that from your podcasts. People love it.
For me, it's setting that intention and then not chasing it with so much desperation that you create the exact opposite energy that means you're going to get there. And it's something I've realized recently, that by letting it unfold naturally, but just focusing on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And always looking to regulate myself, always looking to control my nervous system, for example, which is something people are really starting to notice now. And that's what means then you start attracting the things that you've done all this work for. But the difference between now and when I first started, when maybe I was too desperate and the messages I might have sent to certain people meant that those people probably won't ever come on a podcast because it's from that place of desperation and fear. Whereas now I look back and I'm like almost embarrassed because that's not how I'd act now, but it's part of the learning process.
Yeah, and I guess, listen, I guess when you start something, you believe in it, right? So you believe in it so much, and you know your intentions, right? So you know what your intentions are and what you want to do and what you want to create. So it's the impatience of, I want to get out there and help, and it's so common. But what I would say to you, people are coming now. People are coming to want to speak to you, want to get themselves out there, and that's a credit to all the work you've done.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
And
what frustrates me with the audience, you look at the analytics and you know that the people that you're bringing on the podcast, you feel embarrassed almost again that the numbers are so low.
Yeah, but
that's just the way it is.
Well, it's also one of them, right? So when you started this, if you can help one person from that video, then if you create 100 videos, you've helped 100 people, who then in turn will help another 100 people. So it's that knock-on effect, and that's why, like, one of our biggest things is not to be guided by views or followers. It's to help one person on a video, and then future generations of people will be helped by that person, and they will give back. So it's one of them, like, it's so hard because it's natural to look at the views, the followers, and what's going on, but you're doing an incredible job. I saw you and saw the work you're doing, and it's inspiring.
I appreciate that, mate. And you are right. And I measure my impact more on the nature of the people that message me, and more often than not, the messages I received are from people that are going through the absolute worst scenarios you can imagine in life.
Yeah.
And for me, I know my podcast isn't something that people need to listen to probably forever. It's something to help pull them out of where they are. So the people I get messages from are going through all sorts of things, bereavements and cancer, loss, but then they're taking so much value from the stories they're hearing. So for me, if you can, how can you measure that?
And it's one of them where, like, the 67 people you've had on will be a vast variety of people with 67 different stories. Yeah. So the messages you're going to get through in future, when you get to 100, 200 videos, the messages you get through, you've got people that have come on the podcast that have connected with you, who can help everybody. You've got a network of people then, and a community of people that can help anyone that comes through to you with any issue, that you can put in contact with myself or other people who will help them through it. And that's something you don't look at the start, but it is something that will happen in future. It just will.
What's your vision with your podcast?
The vision with the podcast is, I think the education and care system is I think it's hard work at the moment. Schools are get a bad rap, but there's some brilliant people working in schools who are trying to make a real difference. The care system is tough, and I see a lot of big advocates for care and who are trying to make a difference. So the idea of the podcast was, to talk about some of our experience, because I think sometimes when you go through something, like I said, we're very honest in business. We've made mistakes. We've got things wrong. We've done things that we would do differently this time. And our thing on the podcast is to be authentic about what we've done. You know, we spent £250,000 on a school last year that didn't go through, and we self-funded that, and you know, that hit the rest of the business. But people don't, you know, we weren't able to pay ourselves for 8 months, and you know, people don't see that side of things. And you know, when you lose that security of financials, and you know, in your life, it's really hard. And I think what what the podcast is to be really authentic, is to bring brilliant people to the studio, and talk about their life, and what you know, their lived experience and how they've come out the other side. And then it's to promote the Thank You Project. And in all honesty, I thoroughly enjoy it because I get to have a laugh with my mate, and you know, we have a good time. So it gives me a sense of enjoyment in the week with the rest of the noise, and how hard it is sometimes. It gives me that sense of enjoyment.
And then going back to what we said earlier around people, and you mentioned that you'd struggled there with business, finances, which then puts pressure on things like paying your bills.
Yeah.
But the consistent is the people, no matter how tough all that other stuff gets. There's this thing inside where you know that those people around you, they're not going anywhere. So I imagine that's part of the journey to where you got to this, like where you are now, with having that deep-rooted appreciation for those people.
Yeah, of course. And like, I think being an entrepreneur and running a business is, you know, I got into this to help kids. I offered a free day locally to children in care, and I ended up mentoring 2 of them. And then 2 became 10, and then you've got 4 staff. And then 10 became 20, and you've got 8 staff. And 20 became 400, and you've got 120 staff. And it's like, I didn't want to run a business. I just wanted to help kids. And I think as it's gone, you know, I found it hard, and having people around me to support me was really important. You know, I'm living my dream. I'm living my purpose every single day of my life, because I know that we're impacting young people every single day. And you know, I was that kid in the classroom that could have done with someone, and I had someone obviously in year 10 that helped me. And you know, I had other teachers as well that were great. But yeah, it's giving people hope when things aren't going that way. And I guess, what, you know, one of your topics is resilience, right? It's not until you go through a year like we went through last year, or I went through personally last year, that resilience is built. And you know, everything this year is easy compared to last year, because we're making better decisions. You know, we're we're more strategic. I think with an ADHD brain, you sometimes aren't strategic. It's kind of, we'll take this risk. Whereas we've been a lot more strategic this year in what we're doing. So yeah, it's, you know, you've got to hit those lows sometimes to appreciate the highs. But, you know, I always say to my wife, like, we don't know how long we're here, right? So let's enjoy every day.
Wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said. And that's the beauty of when you connect with people that have been through some stuff and they've not had it easy. And that doesn't mean that the path has to have been the same. It's just that appreciation that to get to where you are now, with that humility and the values and the vision and everything you're trying to do, it's from that shared energy and intention of using it for the greater good.
It's so important.
Yeah, respect.
Like, one of the toughest things for me in business was, I'd never led people. I'd always worked for people. So I'd never led people, right? So one of the hardest things I had to learn is, it was my vision and my idea, and what I wanted to create initially. You know, it's developed a lot. I've got a lot of brilliant people around me within the business who, have developed it. But what I learned is, every single staff member that comes through their doors has their own story, and they react differently to different things. And what I had to learn really quickly is, I have to treat people how they need to be treated, not want them to be like myself, because they are different to me. And we're like that with every single young person that comes through our door. Someone that reacts to that might not react to that. And every sort of behavior is an emotion, and just how people show things is different. And with my staff, like, every day is a new day. Every child that comes through our door every day, it's a new day. And they are all different. Every kid we get through the door, I have a saying that every child deserves a champion. And every child has a bit of brilliance. We just need to bring it to light, and that's what we do in our alternative provisions. You know, we've had music producing, we've had trainer design, we've had boxing, we've had, you know, maths and English. We do everything across the board because every single person is different, and what we help them try and do is find what they love, and then we roll with that, and then we integrate them back into school.
So how does it feel when you put your heart and soul into a young person and then they spread their wings and you have high hopes, but you know there's this potential that it may go wrong and they may not make the best choices, and then lo and behold, you come to learn down the future that they may have made some poor choices and found themselves in some less than desirable circumstances. How do you cope with that when that inevitably happens?
Yeah, yeah. Look, but it's always, you can only do what you can do, right? And what we do with the young people is we give them a choice to find a pathway to success. Now, what I always tell them and what I always believe is you can make a bad decision and you can choose something that isn't right, but you can always rectify it. So you know, I made many bad decisions when I was younger. My parents were brilliant people, and I made decision after decision because I was angry at life. And you know, why was I the one given up? And why was this, right? And I was angry at the world. I didn't need to be, but I was a horrible I was horrible. And that they weren't. They were brilliant. But what I realized from them and what I've realized since is whatever you do, you have an option to get out of it. As long as you put in the work for things to get better. You know, you can go to prison for 10 years. When you come out of prison, it's on you what you do. Well, you can go through what I've been through. You can go through depression. There is always a way out. You just have to find the people around you and like you have, find your purpose. If you can find those two things, the good people and a purpose, I feel like you can achieve anything you want.
That's bang on the money, really. And it's 2 seconds. My wife's just walking through.
No problem.
Should have turned around then and laughed at me if she'd have heard me
Yeah.
speaking.
But
what I was going to say was, how important do you feel it is as well? And I know it's not easy, and I know these are big words that we throw about, but forgiveness of yourself when we all make choices. A lot of the time, the worst choices we make are in those moments where we're feeling the worst about ourselves and life, and they're not actually a reflection of what's inside us at all. Yeah. So when, like you said, you come out of prison and all of that really it's in the past, we can't change any of it. And in some ways, the gift that you have is, if nothing else, a very good starting point is always, well, how can I prevent others from making those same mistakes?
Yeah, and I guess that's it, right? So my thing is, you know, I made mistakes and, you know, they could have been a lot worse, right? But they could have been a lot better. But I think my thing is I want to help other people. So whatever I was like back then, by giving back and giving people the option to choose their path and giving them a route to success is what I needed. Now, somebody else might be different. Everybody's different. They might need something else, but it's like I always say, is like one poor choice doesn't define who you are later on. So you can do bad things or you can do the wrong thing, but ultimately every one of us in this world has made a poor choice at some point. And you've got people that get up and become successful, and success might be working in a warehouse. Success might be just going to the job center because you were too anxious to get out of bed. But every little success adds up to a bigger success, right? So as long as you can get through those points, whatever decision you've made in the past, tomorrow's a fresh day. So start again.
I love that. And a book I read, which really helped me to understand exactly what we're talking about here, Why Good People Do Bad Things by Debbie Ford. It's one of the most interesting books I've ever read because it's split into chapters of character traits, and you've got the people pleaser and you've got the nice guy and you've got all these different characters that act in a certain way, and it's then followed with what's the antidote. And I guaranteed every single person on the planet could read the book and they would find somewhere in there a character trait that they have. And it's such a good book that helps you to understand some of the layers behind it, and then ways to challenge yourself, especially around the difference between, say, for example, being a nice guy and a good man, which is something I look at a lot, in the way where the nice guy always wants to be liked by everyone and please, but the good man makes that harder decision. That means that sometimes not everyone's going to like you.
It's so true. And I guess like one of my biggest qualities is also one of my biggest, I want to help everybody. And one of my biggest qualities is also one of my biggest weaknesses. People tell me all the time. And, like you're saying, you've got to get to that point where sometimes you do need to cut people off. I'm building something at the moment, a training platform that is around building relationships. Nobody teaches us how to build relationships. I see so many people coaching, teaching, mentoring, who don't know how to build relationships with young people. They've got good hearts and they want to help, but they don't know how to build relationships because we never get taught how to build relationships. So we've created a platform where you look back at who were the people that shaped your relationships and how you build them. We look at the things you've gone through in life and how that shaped how you deal with situations. There's a really interesting thing that I learned once when I was teaching. I went on a training course, and it was called the Pepsi Max theory. So you were the teacher and you were the bottle of Pepsi Max, and your name's Max, and it's a kid, and you woke up in the morning and they're shaking the bottle, and your mum hasn't ironed your shirt. You go downstairs, there's no breakfast, keep shaking. You get out, you've been bullied by someone on the way to school. You get through the school gates, you get into the classroom. But you're the teacher, Maxine, and you've woke up and your husband's had a go at you. You've walked out the flat tire and both bottles are shaking at the same time. What happens when you get to school and you take the lids off? You're both not in the mood for each other. So you can't give each other the best relationship because of what you've been through. And it's about sometimes stepping back and taking, like you do a lot of breathwork stuff, taking a breath, not dealing with the situation straight away, calm down, and then deal with the situation 10, 20, 30 seconds later, whatever you need to be able to deal with a situation or a young person or a behavior that enables you to deal with it in a way for who you truly are rather than what you've been through.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And when you were speaking then, I'm reflecting on the breath work that I do, and it feels like a very good opportunity to just pass on 20 seconds of advice that in those moments where the Pepsi Max bottle's been shaken consistently for hours, and then, but now I have to take the lid off and pour it into a cup, then the breath work for me when I close my eyes then is I'm just very slowly just letting the pressure out of that Pepsi Max bottle, and then I open it a little bit more, but the lid stayed on the bottle.
Yeah.
So you've controlled all that anger that wants to come out, and then I'll take a deep breath in through my nose, close my eyes, and I'll hold my breath for 10 seconds, and then I'll blow the slowest breath out of my mouth like I'm blowing a candle out, and that can take me 30, 40 seconds sometimes, and I can feel my whole body calming, my nervous system resetting, and I'm moving from that fight or flight, sympathetic, into calm, parasympathetic, and then I'm ready to react or respond. But guess what? The reactions now, because of that, are nothing like they used to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important.
It's so true and so important. And that 40 seconds change the outcome of the rest of your day. I read the Chimp Paradox once.
Yes, likewise.
I'm not a big reader of books, but they were in that book. It talks about when someone cuts you up in traffic and you have a go at them, it takes you 40 seconds to calm down, 40 minutes, sorry, to calm down from that moment. Instead of thinking, oh my God, that husband's wife is having a baby and he's rushing to the hospital. It takes you 40 minutes to come down from that properly. And then you go and tell your friend in the office and it's another 40 minutes because your anger levels are back up. And then you tell your missus or husband when you get home, it's another 40 minutes. So you've wasted 2 hours of your day in that form. And I guess that's where breath work and, just taking a step back and you're then dealing with a situation very, very differently to how you would have dealt with it a minute ago, Well,
I would make a very strong point that every single time we do that, we change the whole course of our life, because we're always in that present moment, and everything we've done 5 minutes ago will impact how we're feeling now and what we're holding on to. And for me, those negative traits I used to have and things I used to hold on to and phone my mate and tell him about something bad that's happened to me based on a story I've told myself would mean that I would find it very difficult to wake up and not still hold on to that. So now that I do this work to operate in a very different way, when other people come to me and attempt to tell me some kind of story about something that's happened to them, I find myself blanking out. Like I can't meet them where they are, because I know that they're operating in that model I used to operate in.
Yeah,
but it's very hard to educate people that are in that loop. But for me, the difference is chalk and cheese, because I can move on, I can reset, and I can face everything from that really rational, regulated place.
Yeah. And I think an important part of that as well is being honest with someone. So
Absolutely.
what I try and do, like, a lot of people aren't honest with people because they're worried about reactions, right? So what I talk a lot about is, I try and look at things in every situation from both sides. If someone's done something or someone's behaved some way, I have friends that I'm super honest with. Yeah, I also have friends that I'm not, because I'm worried about the reaction. But I have, if I think someone's not behaved well or been, I try and look at it from the other person's point of view, and I will talk them around to that point of view, and then we'll come up with a middle ground. So I think being honest is really important in situations like that, where people are in that stage of being heightened. It's having an honest conversation to say, but yeah, but have you looked at it like this? Or another thing with that is trying to understand someone's behavior. If you can understand someone's behavior and why they've reacted like that, or, they might have been through something that morning that's made them react differently to what they normally react. So it's helping people understand why they've reacted like that, and then dealing with that situation and the why, rather than the actual situation and the behavior.
What's underneath?
Yeah.
It's quite often a blind spot.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. No, respect. Mate, love this conversation.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on, mate. I really appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate your time. And I think we've potentially got that connection and I can feel it myself. We could sit here and talk all night. But as I said before we started, I have got the duties of fatherhood. I've got to go and do the pickup. That 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock for me is, Dad, come and pick me up. Dad, drop me off. Dad, do this. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
Exactly. No, 100%, mate. Listen, keep up the great work. What you're doing is inspiring, and it's a credit to where you've got yourself out of, and I really appreciate you having me on and me being able to tell what I'm doing and tell my story a little bit for people. And if, like I said, if we can help one person off this video, it's brilliant,
mate. And thank you so much, because I've had, like I said, 66 people on the podcast, but no one's got the same story that you've got today. And I've not heard of anyone as making as much of an impact on the younger generations as yourself and the work you're doing. And I know that is something that you're just going to continue to build and build and build and touch more lives. And I'm certainly someone that has been inspired by that. And if there's any way of me getting involved with it and helping you, supporting you, especially if I can grow this platform, then then that would be an honor as well.
100%, mate. Listen, we're in each other's network now, so I'm sure we'll do loads of great stuff in the future.
Yeah, exciting. Brother, thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Legend.
mate. Lovely to meet you. Top man.
Thank you. Likewise, mate. See you in a bit.
Bye-bye.
Right, stay on for us.